Most of us spend our days doing tasks that keep us busy and going nowhere fast. This is Strategy from Seth Godin, chapters 41 through 81. Um, these chapters make the uncomfortable case that busyness is not a strategy. You have far more agency than you're using, and the real work, the kind that actually changes things, is the emotional labor most of us are quietly avoiding. Welcome to the Leadership Lounge. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Lounge. I'm Chris Duncan, your host, and I'm joined today by Shannon McCoy and our guest, Jay Jacobson. Good to have everybody here today.
Great to be here today.
We don't have Alan Edwards today. He is traveling at a speaking engagement, so he'll have to keep his criticisms of my hosting for a later date. Quick word from our sponsors. We have a new sponsor this week, MSP Hire. If you're an MSP and you want to stop sifting through resumes and start building your team, MSP Hire is for you. Get the right hire the first time at msphire.com. Thank you for MSP Hire for trusting us to say their name out loud on the internet. Leadership Lounge is also sponsored by Sedaris Agency. Sedaris helps businesses and business owners who feel stuck. They do. I feel stuck all the time. Get unstuck, whether it's failing. We're going to just start over. We're not. We'll just keep going. We should push through it. That's what they say to do in professional speech writing class. Just push through. Whether it's scaling your business up or getting back to dinners with your family, or ideally both, thank you, Sedaris. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can join us live next week. Head to sedaris.com/book club. I need to give up. This is just going nowhere fast. You'll find our meeting link there at bookclub.com. Only it's not. It's sedaris.com/book club. That's CDAERIS.com/book club. Shannon, you please take it away from me and tell us about the ground rules.
All right. Yes. Well, usually Alan handles these ground rules, but the main ground rule here is, first of all, we always talk about the book club here at Book Club. That's the thing. Share it, spread the word, and let everybody know what we're doing. Again, as Chris mentioned here, this week we're covering chapters 41 through 81 of the publication. This is Strategy by Seth Godin. And the assignment was to come ready with our favorite chapter and your least favorite chapter if you have one. And again, I don't need to re-explain the ground rules.
Exactly. We'll take a quick tally of everybody who understands it and present. All right, I'm going to kick this off this week, and I'm going to start out with my favorite chapter. For me, it was chapter 80. The chapter was called Strategic Marketing, and I think this one spoke to me a little bit because I think a lot of my job recently is marketing and selling. But Godin defines marketing as having two jobs. First is to solve a problem for a customer, and the second is to give them some story to tell to others or people in their network that improves their status and affiliation within their community and just kind of grows things. We know this now as modern networking, referral building, referral selling, championship building. The second job, which is that growth in the community, is helps equip the buyer with something that's shareable, in my opinion. So anyway, most of the sales training today, and the reason this chapter really spoke to me, is most sales training today focuses on just solving the problem. And I think it's interesting and worth a conversation to wonder whether or not things have shifted a bit, whether we can just sell by solving a problem or whether we're moving to a sales methodology that relies more on networking, who you know, and building that trust and credibility. So I think chapter 80 for me, unlike honestly a lot of chapters in this book, not that they're big chapters, but there wasn't a lot to ponder on this. But this really, I've seen a shift on how people buy and in the ways you end up in front of the buyer. And this really was that. It's that we're not solving the problem yet. The first step is we got to have that affiliation and have that trust before we get the right to solve their problem. So that was it for me. Chapter 80.
Chris, I had that one marked as one of my favorites as well. And I think one of the things you hit on that was exceptionally poignant in this chapter was the remark, "Tell the story." And I think as a culture, we lose that. That's one of the key elements in any kind of communication. Instead of just sharing facts and figures, tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when I started doing some speaking is stop reading your slides, just tell the story.
Yeah.
And people respond to stories. And that's how we've communicated down through the millennium. So I think it's a very good point that chapter makes.
Yeah, and I think this is borne out on some real successful methodologies that are out there. I think, what is it, storyboard marketing, I believe it's called, where the whole point is craft your brand around a story, and then everything you deliver is crafted around that same story. So there's cohesiveness, and instead of focusing on the metrics that make you better or differentiators, don't even bother. Just tell it in a story. Mm-hmm. There was a chapter before that, chapter 47, which was the excuse me, Airbnb story.
Right.
Airbnb was failing until the founders had this story idea, I guess, kind of to tie it into chapter 80. And they identified South by Southwest, the film festival, as in this chapter was talking about the smallest viable audience. But they identified that the people that were attending the South by Southwest were literally the perfect attendees or perfect participants for Airbnb. They were going into an area that was going to be, highly contested for room availability. They were tech savvy people. They were social media savvy. They were status conscious and actively influencing online. And they adopted that to say, these are the people that are going to, go out and wave the Airbnb flag and be our advocates out there and share their experience. So 47, even though it came before 80, I felt also spoke to that marketing by networking and sharing a story instead of sharing metrics and numbers.
Yeah, Chris, what I thought was interesting about that and 47, just to tag on about the Airbnb, is that some strategies, are you fall into or are forced into that could be successful. Like how much of that was strategy, or how much of that was market research to tell why it blew up like it did, and to try to recreate a similar model for yourself, or at least theoretically how that works to make something go so viral and have all those components working to support one another as potential strategy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and you can never underestimate the value of what your customers can do in listening to them. Our cooking company did the similar thing. We fell into the real estate market. We weren't marketing, but all of a sudden we have all these realtors and all these mortgage companies that are spreading the word about our product. Now, we couldn't buy that kind of advertisement, but it's just listening to them and understanding how they're using your product and being able to capitalize on that and put it to work for you and put your clients to work for you in the marketplace.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Jay, what were your favorite chapters? What stood out to you?
I was a big fan of chapter 76, and it's talking about leading change in the workforce and in your culture in your office, and how instead of trying to change your customers, you start working on changing the culture within the workplace, building up a place that people want to follow you, a system that people want to follow. And one of the comments that made in there, people change because they want to. We need to create the conditions for them to want to change. And that's where leadership comes into being, is that we sit there and we provide all of the elements that kind of help them move to that kind of culture that we want to create. And we talked a little bit about it just a minute ago, is be the right place at the right time and create a culture that establishes or accomplishes the project. So if you're doing the right things and you've got the right people and you've created the right environment for that, things naturally happen. And then it kind of wraps up with a car in motion is much easier to control than one that is stuck. So if your company and your process is stuck, do something, get it moving some direction, because once it's moving, whether it's the direction you want it to go right away or not, at least it's moving and you can start to direct where that process is going to go.
Hey, Jay, on that particular point, this is where I kind of go back and forth. And I started thinking, okay, like you said, the car has to be in motion for you to be able to take different directions, obviously. So
Mhm.
all of this is about execution. And then I think, okay, how much do we spend on strategy before we move it, after we move it, once we get, or is it all the time? So just thinking about this whole concept of strategy, because I realized personally where I'm more of a strategist than an executioner. And
Yeah.
I love being around people that execute, because that's what gets me out of my strategic thinking, and because I tend to go with my strategies into perfectionism, right? Because now I could see, oh, I can move this around here, and if this works this way, it'll work better,
Yeah.
versus just making it happen and course correcting. So
But
I go back and forth.
I looked at that as well, as that, it doesn't matter if you're going in the right direction initially, you're moving. And you can see when you're moving that you might be going the wrong direction. It's easier to course correct than to start that car from nothing. So I'm one of those. I'm going to jump in and we're going to go somewhere and let's correct and let's figure out where we're going as we start down the road. And I think that's where a lot of strategy fails, is that it waits until you have the perfect solution, the perfect direction before they make a move, and you waste valuable time. And you may find that even though you may have gone down a little bit the wrong direction, you've learned from that, and you have a valuable lesson toward the right direction.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. All through this, a little tangent here. I went and watched a sailboat regatta yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not full size boats. It's these little 32-inch boats, remote control boats on a lake, and it was a bunch of people who had never done this before. So this is their first time on the water with the little remote control boats, and none of them knew how to sail either. So they're just experimenting out there, and all through that message that you were just saying, Jay, about being unstuck and finding the right direction. The the A sailor knows that you can't go straight into the wind,
Right.
but the buoy that they needed to go circle in the regatta was straight into the wind. So they all started out just pointing straight at it, like, why isn't my boat going forward? And then one of them just happens to fall over sideways, and then all of a sudden it catches the wind and makes some forward motion, but not in the right direction, but it's making forward motion. And that whole point of sailing is that you can't go straight to your destination. Usually you have to tack back and forth to eventually make it to your destination. And anyway, that over and over again, when you were talking, I kept coming back to this idea of sailing into the wind versus tacking back and forth to eventually get to your destination. And now I wish he would have used that as an analogy instead of the car stuck.
And then, Chris, it brings us right back to what your point was: tell the story. And you just did an eloquent job of telling the story of what this chapter talks about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I need to read.
I'm looking forward to the book that you're going to follow this, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I'm known for executing, so this will definitely happen. Well, Jay, did you have any others that stood out to you?
Those we've talked about, the two that really stood out to me, and let's see. Hang on here. I've got a couple more. I take pages and pages of notes, so I had notes on, and my light is not great here. Chapter 56, um, strategy must work in practice, not just in theory. And I think that's where a lot of managers fall down, is they have a wonderful plan, but they've been so long out of the field, they don't understand that their plan won't execute. And they push their subordinates to do their plan and make it work when it isn't feasible. And so those are important leadership lessons, is understand what your subordinates are working with and what is possible, what is not. And then chapter 58, the circle of us and the circle of now, establishing long-term change and investing for tomorrow. And that's playing the long game in business. And I come from a background of funeral service, and the long game in funeral service is generational. So when we work with a family today, we don't see the results of that. The long game for another generation, 20 years. We serve that family well enough today that 20 years from now, they'll call us again. But that's an understanding that we have in that kind of an industry. But if we take that and we put that into everyday industry and realize we got to play the long game. How do we make sure that our company, our business, whatever our organization is doing is viable 20 years from now? And it gives you a whole different perspective on how you make decisions than if looking at a quarterly report or an annual report.
Yeah, that's a long game, Jay. Not
Yeah,
gonna
it is.
yeah. Shannon, well, let's. I have a feeling we had a lot of similar dislikes on this, so let's get the likes out of the way. Shannon, what are your likes and takeaways on this, the good ones?
By the way, if you hear some birds, that's because this is live. There's no green screen behind me here.
Okay.
So I thought of chapter 46 here. I thought was kind of interesting. We talked a little bit about sometimes falling into maybe the perfect strategy, or maybe not the perfect strategy, but a strategy that truly works for your concept, your ideas. And 46 was about seatbelts save lives. Now, what in the world is that all about when it comes to strategy? But what it helped us to see is that somebody was trying to figure out a way to help with the cost and support of making all these expensive changes to automobiles, right? To say that all vehicles, or that it's going to be a law that everybody, that they use their seatbelts. And so anyway, it talks about lobbying and so forth and setting things up and basically creating a story that about saving lives and statistics and how it worked. And so it's once again, and this is a common thread throughout these chapters, is about sometimes a strategy ends up changing the status quo to support what you're doing. You're changing the status quo, and it made me think back about how, and it may be by accident, I don't know, but when we think about hot tubs, how everybody says jacuzzi, and how it's a great name and everything, but how did it become to the point where everybody just thinks you got a hot tub? Do you have a jacuzzi in the back? And so sometimes we use that term interchangeably. And it's sometimes that strategy of being the first one, to be the first one with quality, the Rolls Royce of that model, and the first one that helps you in the long run. That is a strategy, right? So I thought that was important. At least that was my takeaway. I kind of got global on the thinking of that chapter. And then chapter 57, about putting passion into the model, which is something I truly believe in. If you have a vision, you have a mission, you have a purpose, you have core values, and how do you integrate that into your overall strategy of what you want to do and accomplish? It helps me to see that, like we talked about earlier, getting that ball, so constantly executing, but where are the checkpoints to see if I'm in alignment with my original passion, which was my original vision, the values that I have. When do I check that? Is that a quarterly thing? Is it annually? Who's involved in that? As leaders in our own organizations, when do we do that, and why? And then I think my favorite was I think my favorite was probably chapter 60, because we talk about doing a podcast. We talk about how it talks about a podcast here being next guest, best guest. What's the strategy behind who you invite and why? And it talked about the background of the people like that you're inviting, and what do you have in mind about the individuals that you invite for a podcast. um, who should be next, and what is it that they could do to support your overall goal? Who's the next person that will help you with their next step? Who's the next person who will help you with this overall strategy? I think that one hit home in the sense that that's something we could apply as an organization. Sedaris, what we're looking at doing to promote ourselves, and how it's going to benefit our people the most. Who do we call on board to talk to or to interview? And so I like that about who's the next. Who's the
Mhm.
next guest, and who's the best guest for your overall strategy? Who's going to open the door down the road, for the next step of the strategy.
Yeah.
And that chapter spoke to me in terms of a larger mantra that I've used quite a bit. What are you doing today to make tomorrow better? And I mean, if you can just do one thing every single day that improves your situation the next day, you've accomplished something. But if you have days go by that you haven't done anything that improves tomorrow, you're dead in the water. Your car is stuck.
Yeah.
So do something.
So true. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's one of those things that'd be nice to have it tattooed on the hand, or sharpied on the mirror or something. So every morning you remember that you're at least supposed to do one dang thing today
Yeah.
that makes things
Yeah.
better for you or somebody else.
Yes.
Good reminder. All right, let's talk about the least favorite chapters. I have a silent bet that we're all going to come to very similar ones on this. But Jay, tell me about your least favorite.
Mine had to do with plants in the office. It's like,
Mm,
where did that come from? It's chapter 45. Plants make people happy.
yep.
And it's like, okay, but that's not enough. That's
Yep. That one seemed out of the blue.
it did. It's like, where is this coming from? I mean, that's not going to really change anything. Uh, yeah, plants are nice, but now you got to have somebody water them or they're going to die. And it's like, who's going to be responsible for that? And, it gets the window space. So now you
Mhm.
move the guy's desk away from the window. And I mean,
Yep. Well, plastic plants.
I have a
That's
whole rant.
yeah. Silk plants. Yeah. All right. All right. Well said. Shannon, least favorite.
Least favorite.
You got to pick one. They can't all be
Yeah,
your favorites.
yeah, and they weren't all my favorites. I definitely weren't all my favorites. I didn't do a good job at determining which one was my least favorite. I must say. I think I just said, well, this I'm gleaning from. This is not like, 45, for instance, chapter 45. I just didn't get. I didn't have anything to report back on that I thought was,
Mhm.
we're sending a message back home for. So, I guess maybe that would be
Because
my
you
least
live
favorite.
around plants. Look behind you.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
I may have misunderstood the directions for this week, which is not out of character for me. But were we supposed to read a chapter 80 or 81?
80.
Oh, Shannon's lagging.
Yeah.
The birds have got him.
I had it that we were to read 41 through 80.
Okay, well, dang, because I think I read 81 was our next chapter, which I thought was totally wacky. But so 81 became my least favorite. But I'm going to save that for next week.
Good, yeah, we'll look forward to that.
And then I'm just going to ditto on the silk plants idea, because that one just felt to me just, we talk about time and effort and focusing on what's important, and that one seemed to be just not for me.
Yeah, put an espresso machine in. I mean,
Yeah, make today better.
yes.
Put in a dang espresso machine. It's espresso, not espresso. Yeah, I agree. Shannon, we lost you there for a minute. Did the birds scare you away?
Yeah, they chased. They did something to my internet. They say pay attention to me, not business.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about work. If someone were to have read these chapters and show up on Monday morning, so 41 through 80, what's the one thing, Jay, that they should do differently after having read these chapters?
Find a better hobby to read.
Find a different book.
No, there were some small pieces in there. I think just understanding the power of momentum, the power of moving forward and doing something to keep yourself going, whether it be 100% in the right direction or not. I think that is probably the biggest lesson that from all of these 40 chapters that I took away, is that momentum at least is momentum. It goes, you are moving, and you aren't sitting there pondering, what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. Shannon, what about you?
I would say
Monday morning.
Yeah, I would say similar thought is that execution, but check in to make sure that your strategy is in alignment so that you're in the right direction for, the passion of your business and the overall, the overall goal here is that you're in alignment, but you're moving ahead and you'll get there.
Yeah. I also had this weird feeling at a few points about talking about delegating. So my Monday would be something like, stop filling your days with tasks that you can delegate,
Right.
and start doing the harder work of deciding where you're actually trying to go. And I'm not sure where I got the delegating from, but it came out strong for me. So
yeah, it was in there. It was weaved in there.
It was in there. It was woven into one of the many chapters.
Yes.
We always talk with our business owners about off-putting those tasks that don't require you to do them, particularly if they're things that can be accomplished by someone who makes substantially less money than you do per hour. Why are you taking your time that is worth this X dollars per hour when it could be handled by somebody who is making a fourth of that? It frees you up to do those things that really require your capacity.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's wrap this up for the week. Next week, we're going to cover chapters 82 through 120. Can't believe there's a 100 digit in front of that. Come prepared with your favorite chapters, and Shannon, make sure you have your least favorite chapter. And also, most importantly, why?
Yeah. So you're giving us a pass on chapter 81 then? We don't have to read it?
No, thank you. No, 80. Well, I would avoid the 81 if you could, but it is a good intro to maybe what comes next. I hope not, but maybe. Yeah, hopefully that's not a bellwether. Anyway, thank you, Shannon, for joining us. Thank you, Jay, as always, for guest hosting with us. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you to our sponsors, MSP Hire and the Sedaris Agency. Until next week, same time, same place, Thursday at noon Pacific. Bring your book, bring your thoughts, and we will see you then. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
See ya.